Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman, or in this case, I should say hosts, because it's beer talk time and Guy's in town, so we recorded this. Unfortunately, as you'll hear in part 2, which will come out in a few days, Guy had to leave and the battery on the camera died, so I actually had to finish part 2 without him, but it was only for about the last minute, so he was there for pretty much all of it. This actually might be the 10th beer talk. We weren't really sure. In any event, really interesting conversation about a lesson that we have to teach every person that comes across our path when they're starting a business or starting anything really in life. So this is people that we consult. This is people that are in masterminds with us. These are people that are in entrepreneurial communities with us. This is something that everyone deals with. And the reason we chose to do a podcast on it is because literally 5 minutes prior to us deciding to do it, we were talking about this in one of our entrepreneurial communities. And it was so impactful for people to hear that we thought, you know what, this would be a great episode. And a few days before that, there was an amazing situation with my son, Shia, and we'll talk about that. So if you want to know the number one thing we talk to our students about and the number one thing we train them and have to get them to have the mental capacity to deal with, this is it. So I think you will enjoy these 2 parts tremendously. Again, this is one of the most impactful conversations we get to have with people. So I think you'll really, really love it. So without further ado, here is Beer Talk number 10, I think. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman, and in this case, co-host,
Mr. Guy Ferdman.
which means one thing. We got beer in hand.
Beer talk.
Means beer talk. So while we're opening this, we'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about.
Let's discuss how people in shows and movies always conveniently drink it like this so they can show you the label and then put it down just so you can see it also.
Let's also discuss how this opener
It
doesn't work.
Beers.
It's opened too many beers, I think, over the time. All right, so here's what we want to talk about. We obviously coach and mentor.
Okay.
Want me to hold your glass?
Yeah, maybe. Here, hold that. This is a 2-hand job. All right.
We're getting there. So we obviously coach and mentor a lot of people, thousands of people all over the world. And we thought today we're going to talk about something that I think we coach. There you go.
I was getting sweaty doing that.
I think we coach more people around this topic than any other topic. I'm going to leave it open space here for you guys to try to think about what that topic is while we're pouring these beers, and then we'll tell you about them. But I'm sure you can guess it. If you've ever started something, or whether it's a business or a project or a new hobby or anything like that, you've all dealt with this emotion.
Nice.
By the way, what are you drinking?
We got a local brew from Ithaca Beer Company. It's called the Daydreamer. And it's an American Kolsch style beer.
I am drinking Long Hop IPA from Bolero Snort Brewery, which is in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Wow.
Who would have thought that?
That's not something you want to drink.
Well, the water is going to be delicious, I'll tell you that much.
There's the sediment on that thing.
No.
It's probably from the water.
It looks like cinnamon on top of my beer. You guys can't see it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Another beer talk.
This is Beer Talk 10, by the way.
Is it really?
I think so. And if not, then...
I hope not, because we should have cracked a way better beer for...
yeah, that's all right. We'll do 10. 10.1.
That's yummy.
Yeah, just 2.
Okay, so, what'd you think? What's the number one thing that people deal with when it comes to starting something new? Probably guessed. Could be either fear of failure, or it can look like being overwhelmed, or feeling stupid.
Frustration.
Some sort of frustration, right? And it's something that we talk about with our students all the time. And we thought, hey, why not give you guys some tools to overcome it? So let's just start by giving this context. And I'll just say this because I said it before. You're not a unique snowflake. I know mommy or grandma or daddy or whoever told you that you're unique and special and all that stuff. And you probably are in some amazing way. But in this particular way, you are not unique in that every single human being on the planet deals with learning something new the same way. And that is, you either feel stupid, you feel overwhelmed, you're afraid to keep going, you want to quit. All of these things just happen naturally. And I want you to just understand as we're talking about this, it's all just produced up here.
Yep.
It's not even you that feels overwhelmed, and it's not even you that feels stupid. It's just a voice in your head that tells you this, but it's not you. It's just a brain mechanism. Now, why does that occur? It occurs at a scientific level because your brain likes what's comfortable. It likes the known. The unknown is uncomfortable, scary, right? The brain's job is, like we've said this before, for you to survive. And if you go into something new, now that brain has to figure all this shit out. The brain is lazy, inherently lazy. So safe, known is what it likes. And that's why you hear all this shit in your head, is because it's trying to keep you close to the shore so that you don't stray too far and then it won't know what to do.
Do you think the brain is lazy, or do you think that we've trained ourselves to be inherently lazy to just be averse to risk?
No, the brain is actually scientifically lazy. And I say that because it uses so much power. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like something like 4%, don't hold me to these numbers. I think the brain makes up less than 4% of our body mass,
right,
but uses over 20% of the body's energy.
Yeah, I've read something like that. I think it's even way more than that, actually.
And the reason I say it's lazy is because it has to do so many complicated processes all the time. The way it saves or shortcuts, I should say, some of these processes, it just creates like programs, like a computer program.
Yeah.
Like you do this, it does this.
Yep.
You do this, it does that.
Yep.
And so, yes, it's probably from some sort of training that we've done. But in the grand scheme of things, the way you want to think about it is like when you enter something new in your life, that program is going to run because that's easy and lazy for the brain. It's not going to treat it as this new thing that's going to go, ooh, how should we treat this? It's just like, oh, he's trying to learn something new again.
Right.
Run program new.
It's nap time.
Yeah.
I actually remember when we used to do landmark classes, and one of the things that I remember dealing with procrastination a lot, like myself and with students and whatnot. And I remember if there was something new being talked about, I would always get tired.
Yeah, you'd notice like...
Yeah, and it like just that, that conking head thing that we do. And I noticed after a few years that would always happen, or in the majority happen, when there was something new being taught, or if it was something that I knew was true for me, that like my ego was like, we're not going to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Like check in on me later. And I would always feel myself dozing off. And then once I started noticing it though, I would start having these experiences like, okay, well, it's here, I'm noticing it. So I know it's a reaction to this.
Yeah.
So I know that I can overcome it. And there's the experience, and then we usually just give in. It's like, okay, well, I'm having this experience, so I'll give in. And there would be a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give in to that. It would keep kind of pushing at me, and then it would hit this wall, and then I would just wake up as if I had like all the energy in the world. So it's really interesting to definitely notice. I know, every new student we talk to, on a lot of the webinars we do, at least for the more novice people, and we talk about this all the time, frustration, overwhelm, and stuff like that. I'm always amazed at the relief people have when we acknowledge that we went through that also.
Yeah.
And that it's part of the process. And I don't know that there's anything that we ever say in a webinar more that people are like, thank you so much for saying that, because that's exactly where I'm at.
Well, that's what I'm hoping today will help a lot of other people.
Exactly. And this doesn't just go for a business. This is good, like
anything,
a relationship, or I don't care, mowing the lawn, or whatever it is that you're trying to get better at or striving to get closer in communication and relationships. You're going to deal with this because it's not familiar to you. Yeah. So let's talk about strategies, maybe.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one other thing. So you were saying when you were in session and you knew that you heard something that you needed to listen to, you kind of checked out.
Yeah.
And I just want to correct it because it's not that you were aware. You were firstly aware of your physical sensation of like dozing off, which then you trained yourself to trigger and go, ooh, this is something that's scaring the shit out of my ego or something like that. I need to listen even harder.
Right, very accurate. I would call that, like for me, I used to say I'm creating like a trap door because I would notice processes or phenomenons that would just happen to me. And then I would say, well, if it's going to keep going the way it's going, I have to create like a trap door. So there's like the process and then like me noticing that this process is really something else in the background that I haven't paid attention to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Very
so I want to just give you guys a little analogy of how this kind of whole story came about. Not an analogy, a story.
Yeah.
So Shia, my son, is about 3.5, maybe a little bit older. And I woke up one day, he loves riding a bike with training wheels, but loves riding a bike. We have a room in the house that he just can go around in circles in for hours.
Well, let's just rewind it even a little bit more. I just want you to tell them where this concept came from, the book we read, Mindset.
Yeah.
And then what was like the idea that came out and how we're going to start speaking to him, and then about this training.
So
it's really cool.
Mindset, which is a book you guys heard me do a podcast about, the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. It's a book by Carol Dweck. If you haven't picked it up yet, I actually just got an email from Raymond Siadad. Shout out, brother. And he was like, that was an unbelievable podcast. I picked up the book and devoured it in 4 days.
Sure.
It's really one of the best ones. And she basically talks about how when we praise children for being so smart or being so good or being so funny, what we're basically training them is that I'm smart, right? And then if they, for whatever reason, do something where they're not smart, they've equated to you loving them. So it's like, I'm smart, therefore I get love. If I'm not smart or not perceived as smart, I no longer get love. And the reason that's very dangerous is because you put them in a fixed mindset where they're not trained and praised on effort and work. They're trained on a talent or ability.
I called it like people are generally praising their kids. They're praised on talent, not on effort. So they tell them how smart they are, how gorgeous they are, but then the kid doesn't align that with I'm trying very hard or I'm putting in a lot of effort and that's making me good. They're just thinking, oh, I'm naturally good at this stuff.
Yeah.
So when you get older and you're not naturally occurring as good to yourself, like you pick up a new skill that you want to learn, like cooking or whatever, and the first thing to you is like, oh, I'm not good at this, you immediately go to, I must just not be talented.
Yeah.
And you start making yourself wrong. So the whole point, for at least my takeaway from the book, was praise effort, not talent. Like, look how hard you're trying, look how much effort you're putting in, that kind of stuff.
Because if they fail at something, then they're no longer that thing which you've praised them for, which means that they don't get praise, right? And so that means that they don't try as hard, will never take on challenges. They'll always try to stay in that safe zone because that's where they know they excel. But if they ever got a challenge or failed at something, it would be the end of the world. Whereas someone with a growth mindset would just look at the same opportunity as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to develop. And so I probably shared this with you guys before. One of the coolest things I took away from the book was they taught kids that every time they learn something new, their brain grows, which is exactly what happens to you too. We have a very malleable brain. That's what we've been finding out. So even as an adult, every time you learn something, every time you do try to go do something new, right, when your brain freaks out, it is because you're now reworking that brain.
Yeah.
You're building new pathways and new neurons and all that stuff. So it's fantastic. So I told Shai, I was like, every time you learn something, your brain grows. And he really fell in love with that concept. And so now the question every day is, what did you do today to make your brain grow? And so he'll tell me. And we have this, it's really fun. It's amazing to do with a 3.5-year-old. It just blows my mind that he can do this. So anyway, fast forward a little bit. I decide that because he loves riding a bike so much, I'm like, I want to teach him how to ride a bike without training wheels. And 3.5, I think, is pretty young. I mean, there's some videos of some younger kids on YouTube, but it's still relatively young. And thanks to my marketing know-how, rather than going and teaching my son the way I learned, which is what I remember, I was like, look, there's internet. There's got to be someone that figured out some awesome way to teach a kid. And I watched YouTube videos for literally 5 minutes. Both videos happen to be the same exact technique. And I was like, this is genius. I asked Shai if he wants to do it. And he goes, will it make my brain bigger? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we go outside. We do this technique, which, by the way, you can just search like cool ways to teach your kids how to ride a bike. And at first he was kind of like struggling to pick it up, you know, like I took a video series of this. Maybe I'll even add it in here. Like round 1, didn't do it at all. Round 3, a little bit better. By round 5, he already lifted his feet off the ground and figured out balance. By round 10, he rode the entire length of the hill by himself. Then we put on the pedals, and literally first time he had pedals on a bike with no training wheels, just took off, just literally took off. And then he kept falling over and over, and Guy would pick him up, and I would pick him up. And what was how's he acting when he fell?
he got a little bit upset, right? Like we all do when we fall. Like I should be better at this already. And I said, hey, buddy, don't worry about it.
He got that from his dad.
Yeah, he got that from his dad. Got that from his dad. But I said, hey, buddy, look, it's not about, we say this all the time, like it's cliche, but it's not a cliche, or it is, and because it's true. I said, it's not about the fact that you're falling down. It's about you willingness to get back up and do it again. Like it's going to take some time for you to learn balance again. You're rewiring your brain for the first time. But every time he wouldn't fall down, he would make it to the bottom of the hill. He would just be elated, and he would just go, my brain is getting bigger. It was so cute. But it's so cool because now what he's learning is that effort's important, right? Like trying again and again. It's not about him and I didn't expect the kid to get on the bike and just have balance the first time. And the whole point of this is, where in your life do you have an expectation that you should just start something and just be a master at it, or be really good at it from the get-go? And then when you're not, you think to yourself, well, that's not my thing, or I'm not good enough for this, or people won't respect me if, or whatever the conversation you have in your head. And, a lot of A+ students, it's funny because it kind of works both ways. If you're an A+ student, it's like you always expect that you're going to be the best at everything, and that's just how you trained yourself. For me, I was the exact opposite. I just thought if I put in effort and I wasn't good at stuff, it meant I wasn't good, so I didn't want to deal with the fact that I wasn't good, so I just wouldn't put in effort. And I went through school not really studying for anything, and if I got bad grades, it didn't really mean too much to me, because it would mean a lot more to me if I tried and I didn't get a good grade than if I didn't try and did get a good grade, if that makes sense. So I love this concept because I really do wish like our parents knew more about human development, about brain development. Not that I wish I was raised any other way than I was, but just that it would have been concepts that I know I would have dealt with things really differently throughout my teenage years, and I'm sure would have accelerated my growth in my 20s as well. Yeah.
But it was just fascinating just to watch this little human being fall and fall and fall and deal. You could see the brain doing its thing.
Yeah.
You could literally see he would like check out and get really frustrated that he fell. And as soon as we kind of tapped him on the shoulder and said, this is part of the process. Guy goes to him, it doesn't matter how many times you can fall. In life, you're going to fall thousands of times. It's all about how willing and how fast you are to get up and try it again.
Right.
And as soon you could see like he would snap out of it. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And he would just run right back up the hill and go back down. And, sometimes he fell and sometimes he didn't. And then the next day he was so excited to go back out and keep practicing and keep trying. And me and my wife have made a really conscious effort to not acknowledge something that is good, but acknowledge the effort and the work that went into producing that. And I'll give you just another quick little thing. My daughter is a little over 2, and I went with her to the library, and we started doing some puzzles. And the first puzzle she'd nailed. It was like really easy. And my initial reaction, and this is the kind of the awareness and the thing you have to fight, my initial reaction would be like, oh my God, you're so smart. That was so amazing, blah, blah, blah. But instead, what Carol talks about is if they do something super easy, you challenge them. You're like, that was great. It was probably too easy for you. Let's do something harder to really challenge you. Mm-hmm. And I did that with her. And she went and did the second one. And the second one was, I can see she really had to work to make it happen, but she did it. And at that point, I was really amazed. And I said, do you want to do a harder one? And she goes, yes. And that's the game. That's the goal. If you can get them to say yes to taking on a bigger challenge, the next challenge, that's really the key. And so for you as an adult, you have the power to do the same thing. If you find yourself stopped by challenges, or you find yourself being stopped by something new that you're taking on, try to elicit this kind of mindset. Because at the end of the day, kids are much better at this than adults. I don't know if it's like we have more to lose when we get older. I don't know if we have to look a certain way.
I just think we pick up more negative programming. Even when I was looking at him falling off the bike, I saw that wasn't his programming. That's just stuff he's picked up from adults. Like, when you're not good, get upset.
Yeah.
He might not even understand why he's getting upset. He just knows you get upset in a situation now.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have to be like, no, you're a kid. Like, snap out of it. You can try a million more times. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think the same goes for us. We have just much, much deeper penetrating programming around what it takes to really be good at something.
Well, not to cut Guy off, but I wanted just to chop it right here, because in part 2, we started getting a little deeper into the mindset questions and where people struggle and what are the things that you can put in place to overcome this barrier, if you will. So we'll end it right here. And by the way, guys, I haven't brought it up in a while, but if you haven't taken our 10-day challenge and you're a new listener, I want to let you know that it's available to you. It's a 10-day series that I've put together of the top 10 mindset things that I think every human being needs to have, especially when they're starting a business. So it's the top 10 most important skills, mindset skills that one needs to have. All you have to do is go to SatoriPrime.com/10 day, and you can register for it. You'll get one video from me every single day with a little bit of homework on, you're going to pick an area of your life that's really important to you, and we're going to go to work together in that area for 10 days. So if you haven't done that already, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and do that right away. So again, SatoriPrime.com/10 day. All right. And with that, have an amazing, amazing day, my friends. And we'll see you on part 2 of our beer talk conversation.